Hey everybody, welcome back to Build It with Tim. I apologize for last week. I have moved. You can see my background is different. I made a big, almost cross-country move, but I'm here now. I'm back. I'm ready to make some more awesome videos for you. So as you probably know, if you've watched the first couple videos, here at Build It with Tim, what we do is what I do is I take your suggestions and I try to build it live and on the fly. So anything that you may have questions about, how do I do something? How do I build something? I'm going to take those, I'm going to build them for you and show you how to get it done. All right, so today we are looking at how do I loop through connected records with Make. So if you're not familiar, Make is a third-party tool, and it allows us to connect different services together. So in this case, we're actually just going to be using it to um, kind of process some things behind the scenes, and then uh, submit data, I guess, back to Tadabase. So we're not actually connecting to any other external services here. It's all going to be just Tadabase, but it's going to be helpful for us in order to do a whole bunch of processing behind the scenes. Okay, so as usual, I'm going to show you how this is all going to look once we're done. And once we're through with that, we will get back into the builder. Okay, so here's what our finished product is going to look like. Again, there's this is all happening behind the scenes, so we're not going to see a whole lot here. But the idea here is that we have a template already created that has 5 tasks, right? And when we add a new job, we want to select the template. In this case, this job. We want to select that job, find all of the connected tasks, and then copy them to the new job. So here we're just going to say build a web app for a client. Let's use that. We're going to select our template. And when we hit save, you can see the record is created right away, but what's happening behind the scenes is that Make is processing stuff for us. So we can see now when I refresh this, now we have 5 tasks. And here you can see it's the same template tasks from our web app template that are now added. They're created into this table and they're connected to our new job. All right, so let's jump over to the builder and get started with this. Okay, so here I am inside the builder, and I have already actually started. I built out like the foundation of the app. Okay, so like what we want to do, how we want to structure it. I'm going to go through it all and show you how everything is going to work inside the builder. But I didn't want to focus too much on how to actually build the app for this. I want to focus on the actual functionality within Make and how we can utilize that within our application. Okay, so I have 2 tables. I have jobs and I have tasks. So in the jobs table, we have just a couple of fields right now. We have a name for the job, we have a status for the job, we have a roll up field to count the number of connected tasks that are going to be for this particular job. We have a radio select field to define whether or not this record is a template, yes or no. And then we have an actual connection to itself, to the same jobs table. So if we look at the graph here, you're going to see jobs or tasks connect to jobs, and then jobs also connect back to jobs using the job template field. All right, on to the task table here. Really similar setup. We have a task name, we have a due date, status, which is just a select field, and then we have a connection to our job record. What I have created right now is our template that we're going to be using to loop through, and then we're going to do some other fancy stuff in Make. But right now we just have one job, and then we have 5 tasks that connect to that job. Okay, page side are super easy here. We have one page, and we have a form to add a new job, and then we have a list of our jobs. Okay, and I guess while I'm at it, let's just go in here and we will add a record details page so that we can view the tasks. I like to convert these into buttons, so we'll do that. And then on the job details page, we will add a table component to display the connected tasks. So here in the data source selector, we're going to pick tasks that connect to the job. Right. Okay. So again, the important part here is going to be what happens inside of Make. What we're going to do is I want to show you how to actually loop through connected records. But to add context to this, what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate connected records. So from our front end, from the actual live application, when we're adding a new job, let's say well, we have a template called web app template. Let's say building a new web app. Okay, and we can select a template here that we want to reference. So when I say reference, I mean I want to actually go find all of the connected tasks that are for this particular template, and I want to connect them to my new job. So I want to take all of the tasks for the web app template, I want to copy them, and I want to attach them or connect them to build a new web app. Okay, so that's going to be our goal here, and we'll jump over to Make and we'll get that done. All right, so here is Make. If you have not signed up for an account yet, you can sign up. It's free, and this should be all you need to get this particular task completed. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new scenario, okay? And I'm not going to go into like crazy detail about all of the things that Make can do. This is just to show you one particular thing. So we're going to create a new scenario, and a scenario is essentially just our workflow, okay? So what we're going to do um, by stringing a bunch of different pieces together. And obviously, you can see this big purple button with the flashing arrow. It wants us to add something new. So the first thing we have to think about is how are we going to get our data from Tadabase into Make? So Make has to recognize the data. Make has to retrieve the data, essentially, that we're submitting. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to show you two ways to do that. Depending on what subscription you may have with Tadabase. One is going to be sending an email, which is a really cool feature here. And the other one is just going to be a webhook. Okay, so in order to receive the data, the first thing we have to do is we have to set up a webhook. So if we search for webhook, um, you can see we have webhooks here that show up at the top, and we have two options. The first is a custom mail hook, and the other one is a custom webhook. We're going to start with the mail hook first. Okay, so this is going to be data that we send through an email from Tadabase, and Make will receive that data as an email, process it, and then we can use that data in other modules later on. Okay, and what we're adding here, what I just added the webhook, it's called a module. Okay, so we're going to add a new mail hook, and I'm going to say receive new job record from email. We'll just give this a name that's clear why we're using it, and we'll hit OK. All right, so what's going to happen here is we're going to pass data in an email, like I said, to Make. Now, the data that we have to send is going to be the record ID of the new job that we're creating. All right, and in order to do that, I need to make one little change to our application. In order to actually send the record ID in an email from Tadabase, I need to hold that record ID for the job in a text field. So I'm going to create a new text field on the job record. And I'm going to call this record ID. And I'm going to set up a rule. I can either do this in table rules, which I'm going to do now just because I'm here. But we're going to set up a table rule to say every time a record is created, we're going to set that text value for record ID to the record value of the record ID. Actually, for now, I'm going to switch this over to created or edited because I actually need to populate this since I already have a record. So all I have to do is edit that record, and it's going to save that record ID. All right, so now we can use this. We can pass this along in our email, and Make will receive it. So let's set up the email now. We're going to use the form email notifications in order to do this. So we're going to click on our form. We're going to go to notifications, go to emails, and we're going to add a new email. So this needs to be a custom email. And whoops, I need the to address. So if we go back to Make and we click on this module, you can see it gave us this custom email address. That is what we're going to use to send our email. So we're going to put that in the to field. From name, from email, it doesn't really matter. In the subject, though, we're going to send the record ID, and that's all we have to send. Okay, the reason we're sending the record ID in the subject and not the body of the message is because the body is going to wrap that record ID in HTML that we don't want and we don't need. So if we send it in the subject, it's going to send it as plain text. That's what we want. So we're going to send the record ID in the subject. We're going to send the email to that custom mail hook address that Make provided with us. And that's all we need to do. All right, so let's just test this first so you can see what's going on. So I can click run once down here. I'm going to have to refresh this here, and We'll just call this test job for now. And notice I am not selecting a template. I'm just going to do that. If I switch back here, you're going to see it received data. So if I click on the results, here's what we want: the subject and the record ID of the record, the job record that we just made. All right, so now what we can do is now we can get Tadabase involved in our scenario. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the information about that particular job. Actually, I think we can skip that step. So what we can do, I'll do it anyways, but I think we can skip it because we already have the record ID of the job. No, we do need to get it. I'm sorry, we do need to get it. So let me back up. We do need to get the record information of the job that we just created. And the reason is we need to, if we did select a job template, we need to get that field value. Okay, so here we need to add our connection to our application. So inside of our application, we're going to go to settings, API keys, generate a new API key, and save that. And then once we click on that, we have access to the app ID, the app key, and the app secret, which are the 3 values that we're going to need inside of Make. So we're going to do this. We're going to call this our how to loop through connected records. That's our app name. And I'll go ahead and get these items pasted in here, and then we'll come back in just a second. Okay, so I got that all saved. I got my connection set up. And now what's really neat here is that Make is going to be able to basically give us our application information, so our tables and our record information that we want. So we do have the option right now. You can see this little toggle called Map. It's currently enabled, and this allows us to map information from the previous module or any of the previous modules. But in this case, what we want to do is we're actually going to turn that off, and it's going to allow us to select the table we want to search through. So because we want to get a record from the jobs table, we're going to select the jobs table there for the table ID. Now the record ID we're going to map, and the mapping that we're going to use is coming from the subject field of the mail hook. So all we have to do here is either select or drag the subject over to record ID, and we're good to go. Again, I'm going to show you the testing along the way, every single step that we have. So we'll do test job 2. Go over to Make, and you're going to see it's now going to run these sequentially. So first it's going to get the data from the webhook, from the mail hook, and then it's going to pass that information to the next module. And the results here you can see is we pass the table ID for what table are we looking through and what record ID to find, and here are the results. Okay, so when we have selected a template, we're going to have another record ID here since it's a connection field. We're going to have another record ID here that we can then use to search through the tasks table. So let's set up the next step. Okay, again, so we've submitted a job. And when we have the template selected, that means we want to import all of the tasks that connect to that template. So we need to take the template record ID for the job, and we need to search through the task table and find all of the tasks that connect to that template job. So we're going to go into Make, we're going to add a new module, and we're going to say search records. Okay, so we already have our connection set here. And this time we're going to search through the tasks table. And for our filter, we're going to say where the connection to the job is, and then we're going to say the record ID for the job template. So you can see here how it breaks the connection field apart into multiple values. What we're looking for is under job template details, and we want the record ID. The record value is what we call the display value. So if you were using the job name or something for the display value, that would be listed as the record value, but we want the record ID. All right, so again, this is searching through the task table for where a connection field contains a specific record ID. And that specific record ID that we're looking for is the record ID of the template that the tasks are connected to. All right, so back to our app. We'll show you this with, well, we actually select a template. So we'll preview this page. And again, we'll just do test job 3 for now. Okay, now when I select a template and hit save, And we switch back to make here. Oops, I did not run once. I did not select to run it. But what we can do is we can actually, you can see it still picked it up. It still picked up the incoming webhook. So we can just process existing. And now you can see it went through all three. So again, here, the email came in with the subject of the new job that we just created. Then we are searching for that record of the brand new record we just made. Here's the values of all of the fields that we have for that particular record. You can see we have a record ID for our job template. And here we're searching through those tasks and it didn't find it. So let's go back. Maybe I selected the wrong thing here. Let's take a look at this. I think maybe I selected the wrong one. I think we maybe just need to do job template. So my apologies on that one. All we have to do is select job template. So forget everything I said about the job template details. We can just do job template, I think. And let's run that one more time and see if I'm correct. Perfect. Okay. So what we see in the output here, referred to as bundles, that term is going to be somewhat interchangeable for records. Okay, so we found 5 bundles. We have 5 task records. You can see each one. You can see here's a task name, task name. They're all different. Okay, so these are all the individual records that we have returned to us in bundles. So that's the basis of this whole thing. Like I could stop the video there and say, this is how you loop through kill list connected records, because now we have those records there, and now we can do whatever we want with them. But again, to add more context to this, we're going to keep going and we're going to kind of finish out this idea of being able to duplicate those records and attach them back to the new task or new job that we just created. Okay, so now that we have those, what do we want to do? We want to actually reference the job record that we created, which is going to be from here. So let's actually change this so we can, this is going to be get new job. And this is going to be find tasks that connect to template job. Let's say that, okay? All right, now the next thing we need to do is we need to then create the task records for every single bundle that was returned here. So we're going to add another module and we're going to say create a record. And we're going to create them in the tasks table. The task name, now here's where this field mapping is going to be really, really handy. So we can just copy the task name from the records that it found, the template records that it found. The due date I'll come back to in a moment. Now the connection field, you're going to see we have to map that a little bit different. The record ID that we want to use is going to be the record ID of the first job that we created, not the template, but the actual job that we're creating. So here we can just select that record ID from the previous module. The status, again, we can copy that if we want to from the tasks that we found. Or if we wanted to change it to something else, one of our other options that are available in that select field, then we could. But in this case, we're going to want to copy them directly how they were from the template. Okay, now the due date, what we can do with this is we can actually use some of Make's features here for date scheduling and date options and stuff to set this date however we want. So you could set it blank if you wanted to, but we could do something like now to make the due date today. And then we could also add days to that. So let's say we add days. Let's see, I got to drag this over there. Doesn't want to drag. Okay, let's try a different way. Add days, and we'll say now. And how many days we want to add to today? Let's say 7, so a week from today. All right, so let's save this, rename this so we understand what the context is. Create new tasks from template tasks. From template tasks found, right? Which is, again, the template tasks that were found come from the previous module. So let's run this and go back to our app. You can see here in these previous test jobs, because we didn't have a template, or we didn't, some of them I guess we did select a template, but we didn't have that last step of the scenario set up yet. So you can see there are no tasks that got copied over. So here, let's actually try this for real. We'll say build web app for new client, and we'll select our template and submit that. All right, so this is not going to populate right away because it's doing a bunch of different stuff in the background. But if we go through and look at what just happened in here, again, we have the mail hook that came in. We get the record ID from the subject. We go and get the job record that we created in order to find the template record ID that we used. Then we find all of the tasks in the task table that connect to the template based on its ID. And then we create new tasks and connect them to the job that we created. Okay, so let's look at the output here. This one is slightly different in its output, where you can see rather than bundles returned, we have 5 different operations. So that tells us that it created a record 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. All right, and if we go back to our app, I'm going to refresh this table just so you can see the output. And you can see this does have 5 tasks. And if I go into the details, perfect. We have the details of the job. So here's the name of the job, exactly how we put it into the form. Um, we have the number of tasks. So this is a roll-up field that's counting the connected tasks. The status field, I guess I think I left that off the form, which is why it's not populated there. Yeah, I didn't have it on the form. And it lets us know the template that we used, right? Because we selected a template here. And it has all 5 tasks. And if you notice the due date here, so today is what's today? The 7th, I think. The 8th, here we are with a due date of 7/15. Okay, so um, that's about it for that, I guess. So that pretty much accomplishes everything that we want to do for this particular video. But again, there's so many possibilities here of what you want to do with things. Pretty much once you get to this step, right? Once you find all of those connected records, you can do so many things with them. Obviously, in this case, we're just creating new tasks and putting them into the same table. You could put them into a different table. You could build an array. You could modify the data and send it somewhere else, like an external service. It doesn't have to be Tadabase, but you could build PDFs using this information. I mean, there's a ton of things that you could do. But really what I wanted to show you was how to do the webhook or the mail hook, get the actual record that we submitted, and then find all the connections. Which reminds me, I am not done with this video. I have to show you how to do this without using a mail hook and how we could just use a regular webhook. All right, so I'm going to save this and we will say loop. I'm just going to rename the scenario. Loop through connected records mail hook. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to go back and options clone. So I'm going to copy this and we're just going to call this webhook. Yeah, no, we're gonna select or create a new. Okay, fine. We'll just do that, but we're actually gonna change it. We don't need the mail hook anymore because we're gonna use a webhook this time. Again, so I'm showing you this as another method. It's a little bit simpler and more straightforward. You don't need the record ID text field on the jobs table, but this is only gonna be available on certain subscriptions. So we are going to delete this module and we're going to go directly to the Tadabase module and we're going to say watch records. Okay, so this is going to allow us to add a webhook and it's going to help us set that up. So we're going to select the table and then we're going to hit save. And this is the table that we want the event to be triggered on. And we can copy that address and go back to our builder. Under the automation tab, you're going to find outgoing webhooks. And here we're going to add a new one. So we're going to say send job to make. It's going to fire on the jobs table. Here we're going to put in our URL that we're sending it to, which is the address we just copied in make. And the event is going to be a new record. Okay, so we're going to do that. For now, I'm actually just going to go, let's see, hit OK. We're going to unlink this because I only want to test this module. We're going to say run once. And for now, I'll just do a fake record here. Perfect. And it got our information. So here, it passed us all the same information that it did from the mail hook, but obviously it was a little bit easier to configure. So we wouldn't need this record ID field. We would just need the record ID that gets sent automatically by the webhook. All right, so here we can link this back together. And in our case here, we need to remap this to the record ID that comes in from the webhook. And we're good to go. So I can save this, run it. Let's go back to our app. And we'll say build another web app. Select our template, hit save. We'll make sure this all goes through, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if we go back to our app here, let's see, there's our app. You can see here's the record that we just created with the 5 tasks, and here they are. All right, so that's it for this week's episode of Build It with Tim. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you at least learned an introduction into Make and all of the cool stuff that you can do with it. As usual, any questions, feel free to leave a comment, discuss it in the community, whatever works best for you, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.